Good morning, everyone. My name is Gianella Daquilema.
And I am Andrea Carrera. Today, we are going to present our article titled The Contribution of Cognitive Neuroscience to Interlearning Process of English Language. In this presentation, we will explain the introduction, the literature review, the methodology, the main results, conclusions, and recommendations.
Let's start with a brief introduction. In recent decades, cognitive neuroscience has gained great importance in education because it helps us understand how the brain works with learning. This science combines contributions from neuroscience, psychology, and pedagogy, giving rise to what is now called neuroeducation.
In the specific case of learning English as a foreign language, cognitive neuroscience is especially useful because it involves processes such as memory, attention, motivation, and emotions, which directly influence meaningful learning.
The main objective of our article was to review the scientific literature on the application of cognitive neuroscience in the interlearning of English, analyzing studies carried out in Latin America and Europe in order to identify both benefits and limitations.
Regarding the literature review, we found that cognitive neuroscience emphasizes the importance of emotions and motivation in the learning process. Several studies in our analysis highlight that emotional engagement enhances attention and facilities long-term memory consolidation. This means that students learn English more effectively when they are motivated, emotionally involved in the activities.
The authors reviewed also stressed the relevance of creating learning environments that stimulate curiosity and creativity. According to the literature, when students are encouraged to experiment, explore, and make connections, they develop greater autonomy in the learning of English. This is directly related to the findings of Cañas et al. 2015, who argued that creativity and flexibility are essential for meaningful learning.
Another aspect found in the reviewed studies is the role of mirror neurons in language acquisition. These neurons explain why interactive activities such as role plays, dialogues, and collaborative tasks are more effective than passive repetition. The literature indicates that when students observe and interact with others, their brain activates in a way that favors language production and comprehension.
In addition, the literature review shows that neurodidactic strategies improve results in English language. For example, in the Ecuadorian context, the case of MD School demonstrated that the application of such strategies led to better performance in international English assessments. This reinforces the idea that the integration of neuroscience into pedagogy generates measurable improvements in language proficiency.
However, one important limitation reported in the literature is the persistence of neuromyths among teachers. Even though the article does not go into detail about each specific myth, it does point out that these misconceptions prevent the correct use of neuroscience in education. Therefore, teacher training is necessary to ensure that the strategies are applied in a scientifically accurate way.
The studies also revealed that bilingualism and multilingualism strengthen brain plasticity, improve cognitive functions such as memory, and delay cognitive decline. This confirms that English learning, besides being a linguistic tool, also provides neurological benefits that extend throughout life.
Furthermore, the literature highlights that neuroeducation not only improves academic learning outcomes, but also supports the development of social-emotional skills. Competencies such as empathy, autonomy, and creativity are repeatedly mentioned as positive results of applying neuroscience principles to English literature learning.
Right. Another contribution identified is that neuroeducation not only improves academic skills, but also competences such as empathy, creativity, and autonomy, which are essential in today's education.
Well, regarding to neurodidactic strategies by gender, we can say that female teachers more frequently employ neurodidactic strategies than male teachers, both in face-to-face English classes and in online sessions.
Okay, both male and female teachers consider students' feelings important and try to apply teaching strategies that engage the emotions, which is essential for students to feel comfortable communicating in a foreign language.
To summarize, the literature review shows a wide range of benefits from the application of cognitive neuroscience in English education. At the same time, it reveals existing challenges, particularly the lack of teacher training and the persistence of misconceptions, which limit the full potential of this approach.
Now, let's move on to the methodology part.
The methodology of our article was a documentary literature review, which means that we did not conduct fieldwork, but instead carry out a systematic analysis of published scientific resources. This method was appropriate because our goal was to identify, compare, and synthesize findings from different studies related to cognitive neuroscience and English interlearning process.
We began by conducting a broad search in scientific databases, both in Spanish and English. The initial search produced 320 academic records. We used keywords such as cognitive neuroscience, neuroeducation, neurodidactics, and English learning. These keywords allowed us to locate studies that explicitly address the connection between neuroscience and the teaching of English as a foreign language.
Well, after this step, we applied inclusion and exclusion criteria. For example, we prioritize articles published between 2007 and 2025, since these years reflect the most recent advances in the field. We also selected empirical studies and literature reviews that directly addressed the role of cognitive neuroscience in education. Articles that were too general, not related to English learning, or that lacked scientific evidence were excluded.
Of course, and finally, from the initial 320 records, we selected 42 scientific articles and 9 specialized books. These documents were carefully reviewed and analyzed to identify common findings, differences, and limitations. This process allowed us to build a clear picture of the state of research in this area.
It is important to emphasize that our methodology was not limited to collecting sources, but also included a process of critical analysis. We compared the perspectives of authors from different regions, such as Latin America and Europe, in order to highlight both the global contributions, and the local realities of applying cognitive neuroscience in English teaching.
Okay, let's continue with the results. Our analysis revealed several important results regarding to the contribution of cognitive neuroscience to English interlearning. First, the partial application of neurodidactic strategies in classrooms already shows improvements in students' performances. Teachers who integrate these strategies design lessons that are more dynamic, more participatory, and aligned with how the brain processes information.
Another significant result is that the students exposed to multisensory learning environments demonstrated greater motivation and retention. The literature indicates that when teaching incorporates visual, auditory, and kinesthetic stimuli, students activate multiple brain areas, which strengthens memory consolidation. This is especially relevant in English learning, when vocabulary, pronunciation, and comprehension are better acquired when more than one sense is engaged.
The results also confirm the relevance of physical activity and adequate rest in the learning process. Several of the review studies showed that students who practice regular physical exercise and maintain healthy sleep habits consolidate their learning more effectively. This is because both movement and rest influence brain plasticity, which is essential for language acquisition.
In Ecuadorian context, the studies analyzed reported that the schools applying neurodidactic strategies achieve improvements not only in international English test results, but also in classroom dynamics. Students were more engaged, showed higher motivation, and demonstrated better performance compared to traditional teaching environments.
Another key result is the identification of persistent obstacles. Although the application of neuroeducation is showing progress, limitations such as the lack of teacher training in cognitive neuroscience and the persistence of neuromyths remain. These obstacles reduce the effectiveness of strategies and slow down the possibility of extending these practices more broadly.
It is also worth noting that the results highlight the impact of bilingualism and multilingualism. The reviewed literature indicates that learning additional languages stimulates brain plasticity and improves more memory functions. In this way, English learning is not only an academic skill, but also contributes to cognitive development and brain health.
In summary, the results confirm that cognitive neuroscience provides concrete benefits for English learning when applied correctly. However, they also show that more efforts are needed in teacher preparation in order to fully implement the strategies and maximize their impact on the interlearning process.
We move on to conclusions. And as a general conclusion, we can affirm that cognitive neuroscience offers valuable contributions to the interlearning of the English language. It highlights the importance of integrating factors such as motivation, emotions, attention, and memory into pedagogical practice.
Nevertheless, we also found that there are still challenges, especially regarding teacher training. Many teachers do not receive sufficient preparation in neuroscience, which creates gaps and leads to practices that are not always evidence-based.
Regarding the recommendations, We agree that our main recommendation is that the teacher training programs should explicitly include content about cognitive neuroscience and neuroeducation. This would allow teachers to apply strategies based on scientific evidence.
We also suggest a closer collaboration between neuroscience researchers and education professionals in order to design pedagogical proposals that are adapted to classroom realities.
Finally, we recommend strengthening continuous teacher training in neuroeducation so that educators can innovate in their practices and support English learning in a more comprehensive way.
In this manner, we have shared with you the main contributions of our article.
We thank you very much for your attention, for your help, and for your guidance. We hope that this presentation has allowed you to understand how cognitive neuroscience contributes to the interlearning of English. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.